Right, I think I'll get started. Nice to see so many people here. I'm Mark, and I'm from a company called Lightmap, and we make HDR Light Studio software. Have you heard of HDR Light Studio before getting the bluegfx? Anyone heard of it? And how many people are kind of product designers, product design visualization? Sorry. There is no microphone tonight. I can only deal with what's provided when I turn on, so yeah. So who works in product design and product design visualization or automotive visualization? Who's into kind of film stuff? Okay. Good to know the audience. So who uses Maya? Okay, 3ds Max. Is anyone using like Showcase, KeyShot, kind of real-time stuff? Okay. First thing, who am I? I should show you some pictures. So, my background isn't kind of highfalutin like some of the film stuff going on here. I'm a product designer, that's what I trained as. I got very interested in the visualization side of things about 7 years ago, and I left doing design work and started concentrating on visualization and running a business doing visualization. So producing images from CAD data like these ones. All the colours have got totally screwy from what's on my screen. But, so I was basically dealing with CAD data and trying to bring it to life as photorealistically as I could do, coming from a design background. And I was using Maya for this, and I started using RBPS ray tracing technology, and that's the kind of route I went down. And that's kind of the background to what I've been doing for 7 years. Generally dealing with really big CAD data sets and trying to make nice pictures of them, which was quite tricky for design companies. That's really what I've been up to. Then something came along, got a product called Hypershot, which was kind of real-time rendering, almost virtual photography on your computer, which kind of shook things up a bit in terms of design visualization, because you could basically import a model, interact with it in real time, and kind of play with materials. It was a kind of a groundbreaking piece of technology for design visualization, and it used HDR images for the lighting. So that came along, and I got interested in that, and got frustrated that I was relying on HDR images to provide all the lighting. I had a wonderful real-time camera, but I didn't have any real-time lighting. So I basically had a curry. This doesn't sound very professional, but this is how it happened. I had a curry with my brother-in-law, who's a programmer, and I said I want to be able to have a HDR image and move the lights around. So I've got the flexibility of CG lighting, but I've got all the benefits of HDRI lighting, where the lighting and the reflections are working in harmony. And a few weeks later, we created the first version of HDR Light Studio, which was for me to play with real-time rendering, and that's where the story started. So we're now 3 years later. From that kind of happy accident, we've developed software with 3 versions later with it, and we're now kind of used all over the world at automotive companies, product design companies, general 3D studios who use our tool for basically generating HDR maps for lighting, doing this in real time. Have a short presentation. So how many people are using HDR image-based lighting a lot for what they do already? Okay, how many people are shooting their own HDRs on location as well? Okay, nice to know. Okay. Can everybody hear me now? Have I got the level enough on the volume? Okay. So you'll all know about. That's really irritating. Right. Remember this choice. What I want to do is go through. Right. So high dynamic range imaging. You have. Yesterday. So it's telling me my license has run out on the software. I'm supposed to be giving you a demonstration. And it did do this when I practiced it. So I'm going to go past that bit and I'm going to actually go to a demo of the software. All I was going to do was explain that kind of in the history of lighting, we've got CG lighting where the reflections were specular, they're artificial. The advantage of HDR lighting is that with an image map, you have lighting information, reflection information, that's all tied together. And that means that when you, HDR images, by their nature, have this realism to them, you kind of get out of the process of using HDR. I was then going to show you a whole load of stuff which unbelievably frustratingly I can't show you. So I'll have to go straight into a demo. I do apologise. Right. It's just a PDF. You're not missing out on a huge amount. A lot of you deal with HDRs already, so it's a bit like preaching to the converted from that respect. It was just a nice introduction, really, that HDRs have been around for 10 years, and in that time they've been considered static things. So if you wanted, as a design visualizer, to light something with a HDR, the concept was, I have to go and buy it, I have to go and find one to do the lighting. And we thought having that flexibility of having an interactive HDR map actually meant you had all those benefits of really fast render times, illumination and reflections working together perfectly, that kind of photoreal approach you got, you had a lot of flexibility. So I had a lovely little build up and how I was going to talk about that to then where we came with that stuff. But we're not missing out too much, so let's just go straight into showing you the software and showing you what we do. The software I'm showing with here is KeyShot. It's a design visualization package where you import CAD data and add materials. And this model is very interactive. This is all rendering on a laptop that isn't amazingly powerful. You still get pretty good feedback with it. So we actually have a plug-in to this software, amongst others. We have plugins for Maxwell Studio, for KeyShot, for deep exploration, and then for the automotive side, there's a product called Patchwork 3D, Delta Gen, a product called Red, which is kind of all around that automotive visualization. But we also have a standalone version which you can import Collada, OBJ, and mental images files into. So the mental images and the Collada contain your camera and your data, so you can basically light those in real time. But I'm showing you with Keyshot just because it makes us look really good, because Keyshot's amazing at real-time visualization. So I'm in here, the plugin's installed, and I'm just going to clear all the lighting in this project. So now what we have here is basically an interactive HDR map on there, and that information that's on this canvas is fed straight into this software here. So all we've actually got here is, you've basically got a car inside a big ball, and on that ball the HDR map's on there, and that ball is also visible as the background. This kind of design visualization is the history of what we do. We do best, what most people use us for. So if I just click a light, this low-res canvas is pushed across into here, and now I can start placing light sources, scaling them in this environment here. I can change the brightness, I can change the colour, I can change the fall off from the centre of the light to the edge. So you can see as we've gone from the middle and we go to the top of the map, then the distortions all handled for you in real time, so that a circle does appear to be a circle once it's mapped onto a sphere. So we have, new to version 3, we have a custom fall off curve. So as the light goes from the centre here to the edge of the light, we can control, put points on here, change brightnesses. It's a Bezier curve driven by a round, so we have full control over the brightness from the centre to the edge of the light. So in terms of lighting something like a car, you've got two types of lights in reality. You have reflected light, where you shine a light at, I'll actually show you a video which will demonstrate this, if it works. Here we go, this is a sped up video of some guys do some photography of a car, and you'll see what they're mainly doing is shining light at surfaces around the vehicle to basically reflect in the vehicle. So they're not actually using direct lighting onto the vehicle, it's all reflected. So in terms of what we're doing in HDR Light Studio, we're giving you the power to control placing these light sources like you were shining them around the walls around the vehicle. So if I kind of get this out of the way here, get that out of the way there, and using these light sources, you can actually start to light the vehicle. So this, if I just get rid of those, well now what we can do here is we can turn our light sources and isolate them by pressing Control next to each light. You can actually see the contribution each light is making to that image, which is quite handy to do that as you go along, so you know what light each light is actually doing for you. So I can basically pick colours for the lights. I can use a Kelvin colour picker here, so I'll just make a nice cool lighting to the side over there. Now with these synthetic lights, what we can do is I'm going to place like a square light down there. I'm just going to scale it up a bit and put the fall off to 0. Make it a little bit less bright. Now what I can do is I can change the length of the bulb that's in there. So at the moment it's just a point and light comes away from it. If I make that longer, then I start to make kind of a lozenge of light. I can make that very thin. I can go and use a custom fall off to kind of give it a real hot spot. So using only a few controls on these lights, you can actually get quite a lot of control. So here I've just put another rectangular light down. I'll use a custom fall off curve, put a point on there, so it's falling off. And then I can make the bulb the full length there. So you can see that I've basically got a rectangular light, made a gradient effectively, and I can move the position of bulbs at the top. So I go and move that round to reflect to the side of the car. Like that. So basically with a few controls you can actually control how the light is interacting with that car. Just clear that lighting. So that's synthetic lighting. Then we've got a library of over 100 light sources that have been, many of which have been photographically captured in HDR. So we have a range of softboxes used. So if I things like automotive softboxes, I'm going to place that over the top, scale that up. Now, there's also things like spotlights, quite a wide choice of them. So what I can do is I can colorise any of these picture lights, and also we can put a gradient from the centre of one of those to say the edge. That is coloured, it's just so bright you can't see it. So on here I can reduce the brightness of the canvas, and it's not actually changing the brightness of the content, it's just my view onto that canvas. Okay, so also what we can do is load existing HDRs into the background. So the background that I had to start with was basically a gradient that was created in Light Studio. And I can put colours at the top and the bottom of the ramp. Here, this side is a luminosity ramp which controls the brightness. So I can pick the top, make it brighter, and make it a bit darker in the middle. So you can basically make any kind of ramp you want to. And then there's an overall brightness setting on that, which is controlled by this figure here, the peak wattage for that ramp. Or you can load in existing maps. So what I can do here is map here the tunnel, take that around, I can flip it, colorise it if I wanted to, take it around a bit. I'm just going to leave that there. Okay, just write it on my preview. So, obviously I can do things like add lights on top of this now. So this applies to whatever software you're using. It doesn't have to be KeyShot. Any captured environments where you want to supplement the lighting with additional lights, and it's very easy to do that in Light Studio. Any one of them from the library. So I might use this right here. So when you're happy with something that you've created, you basically render out a high-res version. The picture lights are generally 4K captures, so there's a lot of detail in those, and you can render any size you want. You can render a 30,000 wide HDR if you wanted to, or any XR file. But when we're working in live, we work at low resolution, some are really fast. Okay, so I want to put a light up there. Okay, now I'm going to colour that. Now what I want is that light to match the colour of the light that's coming from over here on the map. I want to use some of the colours that are already there. So what I'm going to do is we've developed a new colour picker here, where you pick the colour and you have a refinement area over here, and you can change the scale of that, so you can make really huge steps between the colours. But because we do everything in real time, it means you can make decisions visually as to exactly what colour you want, just want to make tweaks. But as I said, what I want to do is match the colour of this light to something else that's in the HDR. So I'm going to click on HDR, and that map that I've already loaded is loaded in here. So already in this colour gamut, it shows all the colours that are actually used in this HDR. Now really, the only way I can see what colours are in the HDR is actually scrub through the brightness of it to reveal those. And we didn't really like that. We thought there was a better way. So there's a button here called Colour Mode. Now what this does is ignores all of the brightness information in the HDR. It just purely shows the hue saturation information. So now I can go over and I can click on parts of my HDR. That colour is instantly picked, propagated to my HDR canvas, and propagated through to whatever renderer I'm plugged into. So I can pick points, I can pick the selection of an area and it gives me the average in that area, or I can draw a shape in an area and it will give me the average colour in that area. So I know that now that the light being contributed by that light is having the same effect as from there. So if somebody's capturing HDRs and wants to put in additional lights that are complementing the light, the colours of light already used in there, then we give you the tools to do this quite quickly and to see the results pushing through into your renderer, so it kind of makes the process interactive. Now we have colour matching tools as well for low dynamic range normal images. So we can load in any image and basically pick colours from that. So you might have a backplate image and you want to render a car in that environment. You don't even have a HDR. You can now build up a lighting map in context against the background and pick colours off the background, so the lighting and the reflections are complementing what's already there. It helps you quickly blend something in so it looks like it's there. I'll go back to the HDRI mode. So we showed this colour mode. What I didn't show you is that we've also got a dominance mode. What this does is, with the slider, it reveals the brightest parts of the image which are contributing the most light. So as you drag that slider up, it enables you to understand the colour of lighting that's mainly contributing to lighting your object as well. So we just felt that the tools weren't there to easily let you understand the content of your HDR, and that we felt if you're loading in HDRs and putting on additional lighting, you really need to understand what's going on, what the main light sources are, what colours they are, so you can start to add in your own complement them. Okay, so that's adding a light on top of a HDR. Because we've got these new blending modes, because we've got the new custom fall off, what we can also do is we've added some new blending modes for the lights. So rather than it just sitting on top, I can just put a graduation on there. We have an amplify mode. So as I put that light over the top of the HDR in the background, it's like shining a torch into the existing HDR. So now I can kind of brighten areas around my object to improve its appearance. And if I pick a colour, it's like kind of shining a torch into the environment of that particular colour. So, I mean, at the moment, this isn't a realistic situation of having a car floating in a tunnel, but if you have a backplate, a background photograph, and you have an HDR that's shot, one of the issues is if you're a car photographer, it's unlikely that you would shoot the car without having additional light sources on that scene. Now, if you go and commit to those light sources at the point of capturing your environment, you have no opportunity to change them, to tweak them. So what this does is lets you capture the environment as it was at that point in time, and then you can craft your lighting to make your object look better, which is basically what happens in terms of creating high-end advertising images of cars. We have other blending modes, which will just purely colour an area, and we have another mode which just changes the saturation of an area. So basically, when used in conjunction with custom fall-off, I can influence different areas of the HDR kind of very subtly, have a lot of control over it. And if I'm doing this right at the edge of a map or right at the top, all of that distortion is happening for you and being controlled. So what we're finding is with the beta testers of this version 3, the majority of our customers use it for doing advertising images, and they're spending a lot more time using the new blending modes and the custom fall-off together to do things that they may traditionally have done in Photoshop, and committed to the changes, come back in, tried the map out, gone back to Photoshop, flipped around, where it's made the process more interactive for them, basically. One of the advantages is as well is that everything is editable at any point in time. Any of these adjustments that you're making can be changed at any point. So you only commit to your final render whenever you like. So you've always got that kind of DNA code of the lighting setup you made for that object that can be edited at any time. So if you were to have approached this stuff in Photoshop, you probably would have had to be doing it, all the amends you were making on the higher res image all of the time, and moving around a big image to do test renders where you can do a low resolution output from here, test out different lighting ideas, and when you're happy with it, go and do your massive HDR, and still have the ability to come back and change it at any point later. So, is there any questions?
That preview there, is that your low res HDR when you first render? Does that generate?
Yeah. So
large?
What I can do is on this, I can render to an EXR and HDR, or on this one I can go live. So if I just save that, that's going to render that high res and then push it across into this renderer.
So this is the workflow within P-Shop?
Yes, yes.
Is there a similar workflow for Max or deep exploration?
Okay, so deep exploration with the live plugin, which is the same as this window here. Yeah. It's just feeding into deep exploration.
But you still have to do your render, your final.
You're always going to have to do a final render. So if you like see in the background there now, that HDR is like at full high res. The screen's actually quite dark. That's now at kind of the full resolution of the original backplate.
So when if you imagine something you've got 2D and then wait, then you can go to Max.
Yes. That's it, yeah. Just the live stuff, because you've got like referenced 4K, there's a lot of data you're moving around if you were to try and attempt to do that at full resolution, and it just slow everything down. So we just do everything, it's like working in a proxy in a way, in real time. I think one of the interesting things for us is that coming to something like this can be quite intimidating, because where we come from is providing something like real-time lighting into product which only uses HDRs for lighting. So a lot of the products we complement, we work with, that's much needed for them. Where when you kind of come over to the 3ds Max, the Maya, and your more general 3D artists, then it's a new thing for us, because it's kind of a new area. We know people buy us in that area, and they like using our products, but there's a lot of people doing some very highfalutin things to do with HDR, and this just probably doesn't even fit in our workflow at all. So just all we can do is kind of show what we're up to, and we know that from the kind of the automotive market really loves what we do.
You mentioned that you could play some cards, for example, on
yes.
8 about.
Yes. Yeah.
Have you got any examples?
Yeah, let's try.
They look good.
That look good. Right, so that's a car, and it hasn't got a lighting environment at all. So I might just have something there. So basically, that looks a bit mad in terms of what we've got over here. But what we've done is loaded in this background image, and we've actually gone and picked these colours from this environment here, and then made kind of a fake sky, added additional lights to kind of make that look more bedded in. It's just quite dark on that screen. That's an example of what you can do. What's that, sorry?
You've got a bit more of your work cut out having to match up the colours there.
Yeah, I mean, it's compared to having nothing and being able to do something pretty quickly. You know, it's not. It doesn't look. I don't think it looks terrible. But, you know, you get a lot of images. You get, okay, let's, you know, we're not dealing in film kind of stuff. So you get, you might do an image, and then it'll get retouched, crazy amount of retouching on it. And so we kind of sit in the, you know, some of the things we do, yeah, they look quite retouched. But then people are trying to go for that kind of stuff anyway. So it's kind of that middle ground of realism, retouch field. I'll close that. Just open the standalone version. So with the standalone, you know, this bit is exactly the same. Instead of somebody else's real-time renderer, we have our own. And here we've got the Audi model I exported from Maya as an MI file, and so it's going to contain the camera position, it's going to contain the data of the vehicle. And then I can do the same process here to data from anywhere, because we support Collage as well. So if something hasn't got inbuilt real-time rendering plug into, or we haven't plugged into, you just bring it in here and start lighting it. So we don't have a concept of supporting all the shaders. What we do is we just have reflections mode, illumination mode, and then you can combine both of them. So it's enough information to let you make decisions about where you've put your lighting, how bright the lighting is, where it's falling on the vehicle.
You can support the camera from one.
Yeah, that comes in an MI file, and that comes in a Collage file as well. So on this MI, if we click on here, right, just move the position, click on my little camera, and it will use the ones in the MI file, so we get back to that. In reflections mode, it's really, really fast. And then a lot of kind of studio lighting type stuff, your main concern is reflections anyway, so it's a fast way to get something linked, and then just taking that straight into Maya, a little match. So, firstly, I apologise that, you know, the first bit of the presentation didn't appear, so I'm very sorry about that. Okay. Is there any questions about the stuff we've shown? It's not at the moment. It's with V-Ray RT. No, all you need to do is save your file as a Collada or an MI file. MI is just, even though you're not using mental rate renderer, you can save an MI file from Max or from Maya. It will have your geometry in, it will have your cameras in. You load that into Livelight, and then you light that geometry, and then you save your HDR, load it into V-Ray, and the results will match in terms of you have to flip it, rotate 180, and then it will all align as you saw it in the Livelight viewer here.
So when you put it into Max, for example,
yes,
you say you just bring it in and Max and flip it.
Basically,
you have to do a few things to get it.
Well, the problem is there isn't like a everybody implements the position of the HDR dome or lighting environment different. So Maya treats it one way, Max treats it another, Maxwell treats it another. So you just have a different setting for really. Is this mapped to the inside or mapped to the outside? So do I flip it or not? And then what is the rotation? And it's going to be 0, 90, 180 or 270 flipped or not. And once you know that, it's the same every time. So you will load it into here, and what you see there, that setting will always be that there. V-Ray dome line set to infinity, and then I think that's flipped to 180. It's just the setting of the dome, flip 180, and then it only takes the first time to work out what rotation is, and then it's the same every time you use it. Got some images up that. The thing about it is it's very, very simple. The concept is simple. We have a lot of photographers as customers because they understand about lighting, that effectively it's about having an object, surrounding it with areas of light, dark, different shapes, different fall-offs, and when it's in their hands, they find it very easy, very intuitive to use it.
What about the hardware requirements?
It's all based off CPUs. There's no special GPU card required for it. I mean, if you've got a if you're using us with software as GPU accelerated, then that's that bit of software. In terms of anything of ours, it will run on a really modest spec. CPU. Yeah, the file, an MI file from Maya is nerves. It reads it in. So yeah, it does read nerves. Probably have to polygonize it. If Mental Ray doesn't support it, we would support it.
Say for example, if I have a scene with characters that are already V-Ray,
Yes.
so you build animation, bring that in. Would that contain the model and animation as well?
It would have to be that particular, again, if that particular frame can be exported to Mental Ray to render,
Yeah.
it will come across like render. So that should be possible, yes. The new version comes out in a couple of weeks. It's version 3 that I've been shown. Price, don't know yet. Still working towards version 2. What's version 2? It's 449. Yeah. No, the Pro version supports loading HDRs in the background, and then the standard version doesn't. So the standard is more studio lighting products and things like that. And it is
Pro version.
yeah, yes, yeah. 449. Yeah. Any questions? kind of, I don't know, people who aren't design peers, people who are, you know, I'm interested in feedback from people who are capturing HDRs, who are using HDRs often for lighting. I'm interested in feedback on this.
Is there a demo of the site to
Yeah, demo on the side, and then it will let you load in files, do what I was showing you in terms of just won't let you render a final output. So it's fully functional apart from rendering HDR.
Really useful for like an internal shop.
Not really. There's people using it, say with Maxwell, and they'll have a scene which has got say, 2 walls, floor, and some kitchen cabinets or something, and then they'll use the lighting to fake a ceiling lighting or whatever. But you know, in terms of an interior, it's useless. It's an object that's you're focusing on an object, wanting to make an object look good. That's what it's about. Well, thanks very much for coming. Apologies about the introductory GDF. Hope I didn't spoil things too much.